A healthy Cedric Mullins is capable of big things, both with his glove and at the plate. We've seen him rob the home runs. Unfortunately, Birdland was robbed of his greatness for a significant amount of time in 2023. Health is key for Mullins, entering a brand new year, so as you can imagine, there was some worry when he exited Monday's Grapefruit League game early with a hamstring discomfort, and some is an understatement. But a positive update from Sarasota. Mullins telling reporters today that his MRI came back clean, just experiencing some cramping, so that's a good sign. The former All-Star and Silver Slugger award winner, he expects to be back in games next week. So he wore the Green Terror uniform, playing for McDaniel from 2007 to 2010. So who better to lead the football program going forward than someone who has been in the player's shoes before? Skylar Foltz officially introduced as McDaniel's 28th head football coach today, returning to a place he once called home and looking to take a program that struggled to win as of late and bring it back to where he feels like it should be.
It's no secret the football program McDaniel hasn't had much on-field success lately, especially in comparison to the heyday of the late 90s and early 2000s. I'm standing here today, though, driven and committed to return this program to prominence. We will work tirelessly to produce success both on and off the field, to create a program that this community and our amazing alumni fan base will be proud of.
As a McDaniel football fan, that is exactly what you want to hear. With the win tonight, Loyola women's basketball could clinch at least a share of the Patriot League regular season crown. We'll check in on the Greyhounds when Sports Unlimited returns. Kai.
Rocco, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, we're following breaking news after today's guilty verdict in the Kiana Holly murder trial. And some lawmakers want to tax you for certain home deliveries, why consumers are worried those fees could add up.
Breaking news tonight, a guilty verdict in the joint trial for the murders of BPD officer Kiana Holly and Justin Johnson. Could we see some new fees soon for everyday home deliveries? The pushback tonight as some lawmakers work to cover the state's transportation budget shortfall. Baltimore City Council investigates how Safe Streets hires its workers, what we can expect from tomorrow's hearing.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
We are all very, very thankful for the verdict that came back today. We prayed hard for it. We just had to hold out.
Fox 45 News is continuing to follow breaking news after a guilty verdict in the trials for the murders of BPD officer Kiana Holly and civilian Justin Johnson. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has been following this trial since the very beginning and has the latest on today's guilty verdict from the courthouse.
There were many tears shed in the courtroom after 5 hours of deliberations, 15 in total. Just before 3 p.m., the jury announced they had reached a verdict. Elliot Knox guilty on 8 of the 9 criminal counts, including those 2 counts of first-degree murder, Officer Haley and Justin Johnson, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and 4 firearms-related charges. The single charge Elliot Knox was found not guilty of pertained to Officer Haley's case, the use of a firearm during the course of a violent crime. Knox was facing 2 counts on that charge, but found guilty on only 1. Now, as the verdict was being read, tears shed in the courtroom. Officer Haley's family, Justin Johnson's family. We even saw Assistant State's Attorney Kirk Brooklyn, who has been prosecuting this case, emotional as he was hugging the families. A big question Officer Haley's family left with is why, a motive in these killings. Take a listen.
No one wakes up in the morning and says, let me go and kill a police officer. No one wakes up in the morning and says, well, after we kill this police officer, let's go across town and take someone's son. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks those things. Someone sent them to do it. And I'm going to say right here and right now, I'm coming for you.
I'm glad for the actual verdict, but I would wish there was another way of penalizing these guys, because Justin and Officer Haley's gone. And the thing is, the taxpayers got to foot the bill for the rest of these guys' life. And I wish there was another way that we could penalize them.
Officer Haley's family stressing this is not over. On March 28th, in just about 3 weeks, Knox's co-defendant Trayvon Shaw is scheduled to appear in court. Unlike Knox, he is being tried for both murders separately. Back in October, a jury found him guilty of Justin Johnson's murder. March 28th, he will be sentenced, and then I'm told we'll have his trial for Officer Haley. It's unclear if he may take a plea deal. It's also unclear if Knox will testify in his trial. Again, that happening March 28th. As for Knox, he is scheduled to be sentenced June 4th. Reporting in downtown Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
We are following more breaking news. Baltimore County Police are on the scene of a barricade situation in Rosedale. It's on 62nd Street. Police say officers were called to the scene for reports of shots fired. They say those officers assessed the situation and called for a barricade. Police not giving any more details on what led up to the shooting or the barricade, only saying the suspect is alone inside the location. No one else is hurt. Police are asking residents to avoid the area until the all clear has been given.
We're also following breaking news right now on the campaign trail. Nikki Haley announces that she is suspending her Republican presidential campaign. It comes after Haley lost 14 out of 15 states to former President Trump last night on Super Tuesday. She did beat Trump in the Republican primary contest in Vermont and Washington, D.C. Haley did not endorse Trump, instead saying it's now time for him to win over Republican voters.
In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us.
Haley's decision sets up a rematch between frontrunners Joe Biden and Donald Trump in November's general election. We'll have the latest on the 2024 presidential race on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. Mary?
Hi, thank you. Maryland lawmakers are considering taxing you for packages that show up at your house to make up a multi-billion-dollar shortfall in the state's transportation budget. House Bill 1215 would impose a 50-cent fee on most online purchases and home deliveries, including Amazon and the Postal Service. The fee would not apply to tangible personal property like food and medicine. Lawmakers are calling it a road impact fee and hope it will cover a more than $3 billion shortfall in funding the state's transportation projects. But consumers are concerned those fees could add up fast.
It feels really, really small, but it shouldn't be overlooked, the effect that can have. And it feels strange that it's falling on the consumer and not the storefront.
I think the tax should be put on companies that initiate deliveries, who can do deliveries.
There's also concern for small businesses in low-income communities, but supporters say if the money is used wisely on transportation projects across the state, it might be worth it. The bill has gone through a first reading and now has been referred to committee. Also in Annapolis, debate over the blueprint for Maryland's future. Leaders from all over the state are raising concerns over Kerwin's price tag. Some lawmakers are pushing for a slowdown on the plan, proposing the Blueprint Accountability and Flexibility Act. One aspect of that bill, a 3-year pause on implementing pre-kindergarten. Delegate April Miller says private preschools can't afford to lose the large number of young kids to public schools all at once.
We need to put a pause on it right now to reevaluate the pre-kindergarten parameters that have been put in to see, is it feasible for the public-private partnerships? How can we make that work for Maryland? And how can we make it work for the private providers as well?
There's also an accountability aspect to the proposal, which would create a pathway to withhold funding for school districts if the money isn't used appropriately. Lawmakers heard the bill this afternoon, and with a looming crossover deadline, the plan is not likely to succeed unless Democrats get on board.
The main purpose of tomorrow's hearing is to really learn about the hiring practice at Safe Streets. Who are the employees? How are they hired? How are they onboarded? How are they vetted?
Well, those are just some of the questions that will likely be asked during tomorrow's City Council hearing on Safe Streets. The hearing will center around the hiring practices of Safe Streets workers. City Council President Nick Mosby says Fox 45 News uncovering the connection between previous Safe Streets workers and gangs in the city raised some red flags for him. Some council members say the controversy surrounding Safe Streets highlights an overall lack of transparency.
Monty is the first entity to take credit for any reduction in crime, but when there's an increase in crime in those same locations, they're the first to point fingers. There really should not be any difference between the level of transparency the public is entitled to with city employees versus city-funded employees. It's not a secret who these people are. They're not detectives.
Councilman Schleifer says he also plans to ask questions about the mediation process. Fox 45 News has been asking for the definition of a mediation and to see the forms Safe Streets workers used to track them for more than a year. The city has refused to hand over that information. Again, the hearing scheduled for 5 p.m. tomorrow at City Hall will bring you complete coverage on air and online. A heads up for drivers, a wave of car thefts continues across the region. Police data shows there have been more than 1,300 auto thefts in Baltimore City so far this year. Baltimore County has seen 655 auto thefts so far this year. That's about 10 car thefts for attempted thefts every day, or attempted thefts every day. More than half of those stolen cars are Kias and Hyundais. Experts say a TikTok challenge showing viewers how to steal the cars has made the problem worse. A year and a half after that challenge went viral, we're asking why Kias and Hyundais are still being targeted at this rate.
It didn't happen overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Experts say steps like upgraded security software in the cars and steering wheel locks are helping the problem, but the car manufacturers are still working with law enforcement to combat the thieves. It may only be March, but today's showers could set up some spring-like weather soon. You're taking a live look at conditions across our region at the Inner Harbor, Towson, and out on the roads. There is still a steady drizzle out there right now, which could impact your evening commute home. Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali joins us now in studio. We're not sure. This rain's just been going on all day.
It has, but you know, the good news is I just stepped outside of our station here, and it's starting to taper. It's not actually falling at this moment. We're getting some improvements.
So that drizzle is not happening.
I mean, not everywhere. Just because it's not happening here doesn't mean it's not happening everywhere else. So that's how it works around here. Good evening, everyone. And yes, the radar picture's showing some improvements. I wanted to make sure that it was correct. Just because it's not showing up on the radar doesn't mean it couldn't be happening. But outside our station here, just north of the city of Baltimore, it is actually finally not raining. But that doesn't mean it's not raining elsewhere, and doesn't mean that the roads are still not very damp, and it's still very gloomy and chilly. 53 degrees right now, but with the rainfall, it does feel a lot colder. Low 50s as we move past around 12 to midnight into 2 a.m. or so. We could see it dipping just briefly into the upper 40s later on tonight. But overall, the spotty showers will start to taper. And we're at least going to be talking about drying out for your Thursday. We even have a dry day coming on Friday, but we are tracking more weekend rain. And we'll talk about that, plus some good news. I have a light at the end of the tunnel that has appeared. Some spring-like temperatures are finally in sight, and we could be seeing that minus the rain. We'll talk about when that could arrive coming up.
I'm Christine Frizzell in Washington, where President Biden is pushing for a reset. A look at what to expect at Thursday's State of the Union address.
All right, welcome back. The next weather maker, of course, is right on top of us, but we've got another one we are tracking as we move into the weekend. So rain has been the theme practically all week long, and it just keeps hitting us one after the other. And we've got one more system to go through before we finally might get a break. Let's get you through the night. As we look through our sky cams, notice it continues to be cloudy, gloomy, and the roads, of course, still very wet, despite the rain has finally tapered a little bit on the radar picture. It's going to take some time before the ground begins to dry out, and we may not see that until it is completely done with tonight. We still have some spotty shower activity that we will see as we move through the next 12 hours or so. So there is the next 12 hours, one by one, and we're talking about temperatures hardly budging. We may see them drop a few more degrees tonight, where they'll bottom out in the upper 40s by around 6 a.m. Clouds will linger. We should escape the fog tonight for the most part, but we'll likely see the rain beginning to come to a complete end once we tick past around 3, 4 in the morning, with only a stray sprinkle possible for your Thursday. So that means we may actually have a dry Thursday for everybody. I would say it's a better shot at having a dry Friday, and that's good news, with actually a little bit of sunshine before this arrives. Yes, that's right, another storm system, but this should be the caboose of the train of storm systems that we have had to deal with all week long, where we may actually have some time to catch up and catch our breath. All right, so here's future scan. 10 o'clock onward, we're again seeing the scattered showers around. And as you can see, it does show a few sort of lingering, but even though it doesn't have a whole lot on Thursday morning, 1 or 2 may be on the radar here in the morning, but otherwise we'll see some sunshine appear later on in the afternoon. Upper 50s will feel great when you have just a little bit of sunshine around. And we'll take that again as we move into Friday. More temperatures in the 50s and some sunshine, but it's not going to last all day. We'll likely see clouds thickening up just before that weekend storm system hits, which will arrive on Saturday. 53 with rain likely on Saturday, and that may just linger a bit into your Sunday, but we're not talking much. Just a few showers may linger on your Sunday morning, and then we'll dry out, but it will be turning partly sunny and pretty breezy for your Sunday. So it looks like Friday may actually be the better of all 3 of those coming. But, you know, the good news is we're not going to have to return back to this pattern. At least I don't see that in the near future. Next week, we are likely going to see temperatures much more warmer, or I should say much more above average than what we've been seeing. Yes, we're above average right now. Doesn't feel like it because our average is only 51, 52 degrees, but we may actually see temperatures a good 10 degrees warmer than what we have been seeing. So 60s likely as we head into next week. We're going to talk more about that coming up with your 10-day forecast.
Thank you. Well, the stage is set. President Joe Biden's address to the nation tomorrow is expected to be as much about the state of our union as it is about the state of the 2024 presidential race. Sinclair national correspondent Christine Frizzau has a preview.
A prevailing goal for President Joe Biden will likely be instilling hope at a time his critics are working overtime to paint a different picture of life with him in the White House.
If you had to describe in one word what you believe the State of the Union is, you've heard the word crisis, you've heard catastrophe. I think maybe a summary is decline.
With polls showing immigration now the top issue for many voters, President Biden just visited the border and blamed Republicans for not passing legislation that could have helped.
It's time for the speakers and some of my Republican friends in Congress who are blocking this bill to show a little spine.
Republicans countering that message.
They want open borders, and open borders are going to destroy our country.
A recent NBC News poll laid out Biden's vulnerabilities, with Trump leading by 35 points on securing the border, 21 on crime, 22 on the economy, and 23 regarding mental and physical health. Age is one issue Biden seems to be talking about.
You got to take a look at the other guy. He's about as old as I am, but he can't remember his wife's name.
Yeah.
And,
On the economy, President Biden had hoped his message on Bidenomics would land, especially considering inflation is way down. Americans' wages are up, with an economy that's added 13 million jobs. Instead, this message from Republicans seems to be more pervasive.
It was Joe Biden's runaway spending that led to double-digit inflation, historic interest rates, and bank collapses.
Biden also expected to lean in on a consistently winning message, reproductive rights, reminding voters Trump was responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade.
How far will he go? When will he stop? You know the answer. He won't.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Perfect timing. Look carefully on the right and you can see the exact moment lightning struck a tree yesterday in Little Rock. This double rainbow in Ohio may look like it touches the ground on both ends, but remember, rainbows are really complete circles. It's only an illusion they touch the ground. And check out this gorgeous roseate spoonbill caring for its egg near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
TikTok's future in the United States now up in the air. I'm Atrell Nashar on Capitol Hill with details of a new bill that could end up cutting Americans off from one of their favorite apps in the name of national security.
TikTok is one of the most popular apps in the country, but leaders in Washington say it poses such a large national security risk that something needs to change. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is now fast-tracking a bill that could eventually prohibit TikTok in the U.S. Sinclair national correspondent Audra Elnishar has details from Capitol Hill.
It's a rare sight. Lawmakers from across the political spectrum standing side by side to fight against one of the most popular things in America, TikTok.
This is not a step that Republicans and Democrats are taking lightly.
TikTok is used by 56% of young adults, according to Pew Research. This week, the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party is out with a bill to block TikTok in the U.S. unless it cuts ties with its Beijing-based parent company ByteDance and any other entity controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
This man is the editor-in-chief of ByteDance, and he is a CCP member.
Chinese law requires companies in the country to comply with the CCP. Top U.S. national security officials have spent years warning lawmakers that China can take TikTok user data and use it for surveillance or manipulate algorithms to steer public opinion, all in an effort to weaken the United States.
Those who have the best information have the power.
TikTok says this legislation will trample the First Amendment rights of 170 million Americans. A lot of everyday users aren't too happy.
No one gives a about data security anymore.
So you think TikTok users who love the app aren't totally concerned about their own data should care about this for a national security reason?
Well, I mean,